So now to refine this body part here, let me Ctrl N to clear the canvas first. So I want to merge all this model here except for the face. So I need to hide this folder right here. Then I select this body part here. Now I need to scroll down here and open up this merge and merge visible. So when I press that, it will create another merge object like this. So as you can see now, this model is into one subtool. So we back to our original files, original subtool. We need to hide all of this stuff, or you can just same technique as usual. We turn on this here and we press new folder. We rename it to body1 like this. We can hide that part and then we append and we select this merge object right here. We can turn on the head again or hair if you want. Maybe we hide the hair first. And now we can merge everything using Dynamesh here. So we'll need to add subdivision level. So we divided just once. So we have 2 subdivision level now. And then I freeze subdivision level and apply the Dynamesh. Make sure the resolution is pretty high so it won't be shaped like this. Let me undo that and then I increase it probably about 300 like this. And now it's pretty smooth like this. I can smooth out this part here. Don't forget to turn on the symmetry. And after it's all Dynameshed, all I need to do now is zero mesh this mesh right here. I just press zero mesh with the basic setup. Now let me change the color and check the topology. And if you see the topology pretty good like this, so no weird shapes like this, I think we can work on this, or we can lower this down a bit, maybe 4 like this. And then we can divide it a couple of times, maybe just 3 like this. And we unfreeze subdivision level. And now what we're going to do now is to clean up these bad shapes like this. We just use the smooth. So we smooth out all this line here. Let me change the matte cap. And before that, we can also reconstruct subdivision level a couple of times. So we go to the lowest subdivision level, go back to the highest subdivision level, and smooth a bit. This part right here, since this one is ripped, we don't want to fully smooth this part right here. We're actually gonna add more to define the shapes of the rib. So we want smooth all of that. So over here, this is the elbow, this back right here. Also you can use this clay smooth brush. And for this one, we don't want to smooth that just yet. So this butt part here, we will later we'll add the line. The knee area, basically everything we need to smooth the all the line that connecting. This back part here and the upper breast. Now I want to polygroup each of this part. For example, I'm using Gizmo. Make sure to turn that thing off, and then I select this. You can use Gizmo or transpose line, and then I Ctrl W to polygroup. So now whenever I want to work on this body part here, I can just select like this to hide the arm. And for the leg also, I want to polygroup it also like this. So these two is same polygroup, so using the symmetry I can work on this just one part right here, and it will be applied to another side as well. So now let's working on the muzzle definition. I can turn on the color if you want, just to make sure this looks like actually blending. So let's start with the top part right here for the clavicle. Usually the clavicle shape is more straight like this, straight like this. Let me draw it so it's easier to learn. So the clavicle is right here. So if you see from the top, the shapes will look like this. But the one that will be visible usually around this part right here. So I'm using clay build up, and then I reduce the focal shift. I put the focal shift to 0 and reduce the Z intensity just a little. And then I add this part right here, reduce it. For the neck here, I can increase the length to connect to the center part here. Now I'm working. So as you can see here, this one keep shaped like this. This one right here, you can add more dent like this. So this is called bone landmark. So it's a part where the bone actually showing. It's not, the bone part is not covered by the muscle. So it's called bone landmark. We also have a bone landmark back here. Which is the shoulder blade. For human shoulder blade, usually it's super complicated. It always changing depend on what position of your arm. So for example, your arm currently like this, the position will be right here. So if your arm is rotated right here, let me show just a little. I mask this one. So for real human, if your arm position like this shoulder blade will be following your arm, will be changed the position as well. But for anime, usually it's much simplified. So the shoulder blade will be something like this. So to create this shoulder blade, I'm using the DAM standard, reducing the Z intensity a bit. Then I create something like this. Now let's smooth this part right here. Also depend on the character. For the breast part, sometimes this breast part is compressed, more compressed to the center. It's depend on the clothing also. So if the clothing is compressed the breast area, sometimes it will create a cleavage like this. But since in the rabbit character over here, there's a bit gap between it, so probably the distance between the breasts is not too close. So I will mask this center point here, because if I don't, it will be creating a weird meshes along the center line. So I move it around here, and then I smooth that part just a little, and using move. So for a connection between this breast and this deltoid area, I add something like this. So this is the pectoralis muscle. I smooth the armpit here. I think for the armpit here we can add more depth. I'm using dam standard, increase the intensity a bit. Like this. So the part over here, for real human, I'll show you. In the real human model, there's a shapes like this, a dent like this. So this is between the clavicle, the chest muscle, and the deltoid or shoulder muscle. So in anime we will add it also, but just a little. I don't want to make it too distracting. So the way how I create it, I just use the dam standard. So the way I create it, I just use the dam standard like this, and create a little triangle like this, and then just use clay smooth to smooth that part, or just use a normal smooth like this. And for deltoid part, there's a little point over here. Let me change the color. So the deltoid is shapes more like this. The bone is over here. It's covered under the muscle, and the shapes of the muscle is look like this. So this part right here, we need to fill that one using the clay buildup. After this, you can just smooth that thing. You can turn off the RGB on your smooth by holding the shift and then press space, turn off the RGB. There's a curve over here, we need to remove that a little. So by creating base body like this, you can understand how the human anatomy work and how to simplify it into an anime like this. So for this part right here, I can add dam standard. Let me reduce it a bit and change the color to remove it and smooth this part. So if you can see it, let me show the intersection like this. It will create something like this. So it's not much of a curve, but it will looks much better with it compared to without having it. So you can turn off the color also to see. I think this clavicle here can be a bit backward a bit, and I smooth that. make this part here a bit more straight. So for the forearm, it has bicep and tricep muscle. You can actually check the muscle name on the previous model that I showed before. If you select this back part here, it shows tricep, and the front part here bicep. For anime, it's pretty simple for this part of the hand. So you select it, so you basically smooth almost everything. Make sure there's a curve on the bicep right here, like this. And this part right here a little bit straight. Please make sure you use some reference when you're working on the muzzle. I can recommend if by checking a figure that shows a lot of skin, so you can check them. Usually they have a pretty good anatomy. If you want to see the real human anatomy, I can recommend website named Anatomy for Sculpture. You can Google it. So for this elbow part here, you can add something like this. And then we smooth it. And you can add point like this. You can use clay build up. Smooth it down like this. For the tricep, the back part, so the bicep is the front, tricep is the back part. So this right here, I think it's need a bit thicker. So I need to lower subdivision level, mask this part here, smooth a bit. And I move this inner part. I reduce the Z intensity. So now it feels like the arm have some fat around this part here. So now continue with the back part here. So as I mentioned before, this back part here, there is a spine or the backbone. You can just create a line here, so from the top to the bottom. So since here the butt area, the bottom area, it need much more depth like this. And this part right here, the back of the waist, it also has a deeper depth on the line like this. So you can smooth the top part of it and try to get a better blending between this back part here to the neck. Make sure it shapes like this. Let me show you using the clip curve. So it angled like this. Let me undo that. So now let's work on this connection here, the rib. The rib bone is not changing. So when we add pose later, we won't change that part. So for the torso here, usually I found that sometimes the artists, when they add some pose, the rib cage is also changed, but actually it's not really changed. So the one that changed on the pose when we work on the torso part, it's just this part right here, the waist part. And this pelvic bone also didn't change the shape, so the one that changed the shape is just the spine back here. So I will explain more later when we post this character. So now what I'm doing now is I'm adding dam standard here just to show the rib cage. Like this. And this part back here, I can smooth it. So if you check the human anatomy back here, you can see this muscle right here. This is called latissimus dorsi. So it's not just muscle actually. For the female character, it also have these fat pads right here. So sometimes if you study the muscle, it will be different if you creating the human skin, because sometimes there's a fat pad right here. So same with the anime, usually we have a fat area around here. So this part right here, a little bit like this. And for this one here, usually it looks like this. There's a line like this. And then we smooth that part. And this part right here, this part right here, it could be smaller a bit. So I press it to the inside. Same with the muscle over here. So if you see this muscle, this latissimus dorsi muscle, you can see the shape. It looks like this. It's kind of similar with the anime, unless it's much simpler. So like this, we can smooth. And this part right here, I think it's better if it's more straight. And we can add more line for the back of the armpit here. Now we work on the stomach. The stomach, we add a line, but it's not start from top here. Usually it's down here, down the rib. And then we add the line until this part right here. Check your reference. And we need to add a belly button. The belly button position, usually if you see this part right here, this is another bone landmark. Let me draw it over here. So the position of the belly button or navel is right here. So it's slightly above this pelvic bone here. So usually I add more depth using dam standard. Once you decide its position, you can add more depth like this, and then you add some line on the top and the bottom of it. And now this part over here, we mask this part here. And then I push my rib cage a little bit more forward and push this one out a bit backward like this. And we can smooth that again. And then we need to create this line over here, another dam standard in the lower subdivision level, and we add something like this. And this line right here is creating and connecting until the pelvic bone here. Then we can smooth the lower part and this part as well. You can increase the fat area in here just to create a better curve on the waist. As you can see here, the rib edge now has shadow under it. So if I draw it more clearly, it will create something like this. This one, another bone landmark. So the bone landmark is right here. Another one in this elbow area here. This chest also, it's called pony landmark, but it's not very visible since the shape is pretty flat for the middle of the chest right here. Just turn off the color again just to fix this part here. Clay build up. Usually the top part here has a deeper line, so I'm going to use move brush and make it small like this. Maybe just put the lower subdivision level and use AccuCurve. Like this, and then add some lines. Don't forget to save. For belly button here, I want to create a little circle like this using clay build up. Smooth that part. And now this pelvic area. We can check from the side view also, just to make sure. The curve for the stomach, the one under the belly button here, is like this. So we need to turn off the AccuCurve first and go to the lower subdivision level. So if you change your color to black, which is just pressing V like this, if your secondary color is black like this, you can see the silhouette, or just using this part is much easier this way. It's less confusing. So like this, it has a curve more forward in this part. So the more forward area is the rib cage, and then the curve inside, and then outside again, and inside again. And now for the pelvic, we smooth it just a little. Like this. So let's add another one here, just to make so there's a line down here. Let's be smooth. And for this over here, the hip bone here, you can use the inverted dam standard, and then dam standard, and then just smooth. Sometimes there's there's a point like this in the waist area. It's the bone landmark. So this part right here is basically this bone right here. So it's visible, not hidden by any muscle. So the position of it is like this, and the shape of the line is usually angled like this, like 45-degree angle. And don't forget to smooth. Let's just hide the arm. Now I'm using the pinch brush to reducing the size of the pelvis. The shapes should be about like this, and we fix the curve again. This one a bit out like this, and from here there's an inside like this. So if you see from the back, it will create something like this. There is a Y letter. If you flip it like this, so let's focus on the front part first. We can add the middle part like this, just to make sure the shapes is correct. So if we create this line right here, later on we will need to create another line over here connected to the inner side of the thigh. Then we smooth it. Make sure to check the silhouette. A bit bumpy part here. Going to remove it using clay smooth right here. As you can see here, the intersection for the waist area it will look like this. If I solo this and then double, it will look something like this. Usually by seeing the intersection of your model like this, you can understand the anatomy better. So now let's work on this butt area like here. So the butt shapes is not really rounded, so after we create this line here, we can use inflate. Make sure you see from the bottom view and top view also. Just keep using the inflate. And from the part over here, this is this bone right here, you will need to remove the line. So you can just use the clay build up, just close it like this, and usually there's a dot over here, so another Y letter, and then like this, and we fix. Over here I will increase the fat distribution just a bit. Let's see with the reference. Yeah, this part right here is have shapes like this, and we can smooth this part here. This part right here, I want to pinch it using Alt and add another dip using standard or temp standard like this, and smooth it a bit. As for the lower part of this butt here is need to be shaped like this. So now I'll start working on the thigh. I think this one is a bit too forward like this, so I need to pull that back a little. This pelvic need a bit front a bit like this. So for the leg, the shape for the intersection for the thigh right here, it should be like this. So there is a flat surface around the inside here. I go to the lower subdivision level, and then I using trim dynamic to trim down the shape. So the shape is more, let me draw it. So it's more like this. So we need to reduce this part here. And add some fat around here by using inflate. So if you see from bottom here, will shape about like this. So there's a little bit of bumpy part here. Let me add the temp standard just to define the shapes. I think we can increase the size from the side view like this. This part right here should be a little flat, so we can use trim it like this and smooth. This one right here, we can smooth it as well, because if you see the highlighted part here, it's a bit too sharp line, so we need to blend it using clay build up. You can use inflate to fill the back part of the thigh. This part right here, a bit like this. So the curve, you can see the curve from the top to the bottom. This part right here can be a bit backward like this. So I need to move this part also, the feet. Try to balance and check your reference. So you can see there's a shapes like this. So right now in our model it doesn't look like that, so we need to increase this part right here. Let me add this more. This will be connected to this. So if you see the muzzle, this part right here, so it's creating a triangle shapes. Same what we want to achieve here. So the part right here, we can use move. So all the important part to creating the anime shapes, anime body is the curve. You need to pay attention to how the curve is shaped inside the anatomy like this. So you can see here there's a curve like this, and then in and then out again. For the knee here, just use stem standard. And the back part here, usually there's a letter H like this, but for the anime it's just kind of similar with the elbow part. So we create the two lines like this and just smooth it. You can just clay build up to make it a bit flat like this. And for this position here, we can improve the curve. Now it's getting better. Check with the reference. Add more on the knee part. This. Let me check again. So you can see here there's a lot more thickness. Let me inflate it real quick. The curve inside the thigh is pretty important also. I will pull this back a little. For the back of the leg, you can just create a line like this and then trim on the each sides of it. Then you can just smooth like this. For the front part, it will be a bit more curvy. You can use stem standard. You select this point inside here and just create like this line like this. So this is the bone, the lower leg bone. It's create shapes like this. So it's not straight, it's more curvy if it has muscle like this. And don't forget to smooth. And then this back part here of the calf need to be more volume. You can use inflate. This part right here can be a bit smaller. Let me smooth that stomach because it has too many definition right now. Just want to reduce it a bit. This part right here need to be more defined line. You can pinch. Push this one inside and this one outside a bit, so it will create this curve around here. So this is actually curve. It's not just a straight line. Pull this back a bit. Add line definition here, just to show this pelvic bone better. Let me refine this part once more. Check the intersection here. I think it's fine. Let me use inflate right here. And if you see the curve is not good over here, you can just adjust it using move. I think we're almost done with the body part. I'm gonna add more thickness on the back of the leg. We can ignore this part, also the hand part. So for this part right here, you can see the point is right here and right here. As for the one on the feet right here, the bone is right here and right here. So if you connect these two bones, it will create a line like this, like this. So you can create a point using the move brush to make easier to shape the muzzle. It is same with this part right here. So I'll fix the waist. This one really small lower leg, so but later on it will covered by this boot right here, so we don't really need to change that. From the side, the knee is a bit bumpy like this. Now this part right here, this pelvic again, push this back a little like this. This line over here, make it a bit longer. For the forearm, you can add some thickness right here. See the reference. So the more volume is right here. Let me Shift S that to copy the view. Now, so the point will be right here and down here. So we can adjust the muscle following that point. There's usually a line right here. So I'll show you. This line position is depend on how your hand rotate. So in this neutral pose, the line will be straight right here, like this. And let me isolate the hand. This part right here needs some thickness. Turn off the color. Reduce the size from the side. And then I add this line just between this upper arm and the lower arm, the forearm. Like this, and smooth it. And did some check, need to check. The forearm here can be a bit off like this. Let me check my reference. For the pelvic bone, I think I need to move this a bit back right here, a bit to the side right here. Just smooth it. It's not really that visible in anime. So I think now we're done with this base body mesh. You can use this for any project, so you better to save this as at this pose. This is called A pose. A pose because the shape of this arm here is like a letter A. Sometimes there's another pose that's called T pose. It's more like this. So, but we don't really use this type of T pose. It's more distortion on this part right here. So usually we only use A pose now. Let me turn on the color and remove all this bone landmark. We can create a backup first. Fill object. Oh, this one right here, change to pane. RGB. So like this. So in this case, I will show how to create the gloves of this character right here, and also the feet part for character. So see you in the next class.